Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we've got a mission that I think is so practical, especially if you're newly diagnosed or, if you just love someone who is neurodivergent.
hmm
We're going to dive into how to actually talk about an ADHD diagnosis with the people in your life, your friends, your family, even your colleagues.
Yeah, and how to do it with confidence and empathy.
Exactly. We've pulled together some really powerful source material, personal stories, the real, this is what my day looks like stuff.
And we've paired that with some really practical guides to give you the actual language to use.
The goal here is pretty simple. We want to give you the tools to go beyond a vague explanation and really create genuine understanding.
And we have to start by just acknowledging why this is so hard in the first place. I mean, our sources point to this real paradox.
What's that?
Is that it's often hardest for people who have always been seen as successful. Maybe you were great in school, you're killing it at work.
And now you have to turn around and say, actually, I'm struggling.
Exactly. You've spent a lifetime overcompensating.
Yeah.
And now you have to explain that there's this neurological difference holding you back, and people just see the success.
That makes sense. And there's a generational thing too, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're talking to older relatives, they just didn't have the words for this. As one source put it, back in the 80s, the world was split into smart, average, and maybe special needs.
So there was just no framework for something like ADHD.
None. So a lot of the skepticism you might face isn't mean-spirited. It's just a complete lack of context. You're building that framework for them.
Which is a great place to start. So step one is the framework. How do you begin this really vulnerable conversation?
All the sources agree on this one. You have to ground it in science right away.
Take it out of the realm of personal failure.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And there's a suggested opening line that's, well, it's really effective. It goes something like this. I have a neurological disorder, which means my brain works differently than most people's. I find it harder to control my attention or direct it to certain tasks.
That's very direct.
It is. And it continues. It exists from birth, and there's no cure. It's more about recognizing where it holds me back and then working with it.
What I like about that is how clinical and neutral it is. It's not an excuse, it's an explanation.
That's the power of it. It immediately establishes that this isn't about laziness or discipline. It's neurological. ADHD is a neurodevelopmental disorder.
And that term, neurodevelopmental, that's key, isn't it? It means it affects the brain's actual structure.
It does. It impacts the structure and the function, especially in the areas that handle what we call executive functioning.
Okay, let's unpack that term, because executive functioning gets thrown around a lot. What does that actually cover?
It's basically the brain's air traffic control system. It's your ability to plan, to prioritize, to organize.
To regulate your emotions, even.
Yes, and to start tasks and monitor your own progress. When ADHD hits those areas, it changes everything.
Which brings us to that friction point, the just try harder argument. How do the sources suggest you handle that?
By stressing that it is not a choice. I mean, if you could overcome this with willpower, you would have done it years ago.
Because the symptoms are genuinely painful.
They're detrimental. And this is where you can bring up the strong genetic link. You can say, it runs in our family, which reinforces that it's a hardwired condition. It's an inability, not a refusal.
That distinction, inability versus refusal, that feels like everything. That's the bridge to empathy right there.
It is.
So once you've laid that foundation, you need to make the invisible visible. And this is where it gets really interesting.
You have to move from the clinical definition to the lived experience.
Right. And the first personal example from our sources was about something they called verbal forgetfulness. This is where you instantly forget huge chunks of what someone just told you. Directions, a name, a date, even if you're listening intently.
And from the other side, that can feel like disrespect. Right. Like you just didn't care enough to listen.
But it's not about intention. It's a processing issue, right? A failure in that transfer from ear to memory.
Exactly. The second example is more internal. It's what the sources call emotional hypervigilance.
Okay. What does that look like?
It's being constantly on red alert in social situations. You're overanalyzing every little thing, a shift in someone's eyes, their tone of voice, a facial tic.
And you interpret it as something negative about you.
Often, yes. You perceive a slight, and then your mind just spirals into sadness or anxiety, and you start doubting your entire relationship. The brain takes things so heavily to heart, even when it's totally wrong.
That sounds exhausting.
It's incredibly draining.
And the third example was probably the most memorable. It was called the chase, not the catch.
Ah, yes, the dopamine-seeking behavior.
The source material had this amazing anecdote about one person having 18 cars in 33 years.
That's a detail that really sticks with you. It's about that need for novelty. The
Hmm.
excitement of the chase, the pursuit, gives you this huge dopamine hit.
And as soon as you get the car, the gadget, the dopamine is gone.
It's gone, and the brain immediately starts looking for the next thing. It's not about owning it, it's about the feeling of acquiring it.
These examples are so powerful, but it also means you have to be ready for the conversation because their reaction, it can be really tough.
You have to be mentally prepared,
Hmm.
which leads us right to the biggest hurdle you're likely to face.
I think I know what's coming.
You share all this vulnerable stuff,
Yeah.
and they just shrug and say, "Me too. I forget things when I'm stressed."
The minimization, that's where the whole conversation can just fall apart. They relate to the symptom, but they don't get the scale.
Exactly. And this is where you need to draw a very clear line. The difference is the profound negative impact on your life.
It's not just occasional, it's persistent and pervasive.
Right. And the sources give you a critical, boundary-setting question to ask in that moment.
Oh, this is good. What's the question?
You look at them and ask, has this problem impacted your life negatively, existed since childhood, and does it cause you sadness or distress that can't be attributed to another condition?
Wow. That forces them to really think about the severity, doesn't it?
It does. And it's a hard question to ask because you're confronting your own lifetime of struggle. But it's necessary. It makes it clear that you can't be a bit ADHD.
This is a real lifelong condition that impacts your ability to function.
It's not a temporary inconvenience. It's a constant battle.
Okay, let's dive a little deeper into those classic symptoms, but how they really show up in adults, starting with focus.
Right, because with focus, it's not just about getting distracted by shiny objects. It's about the difficulty sustaining attention on anything that's boring or hard.
Which leads to switching tasks all the time or leaving projects half finished.
And then there's impulsivity. We mentioned the spending, but it's also verbal. It's speaking without thinking, interrupting people constantly.
And that emotional reactivity, those really quick, intense mood shifts.
Yes. And that brings us to the most misunderstood part of adult ADHD, I think.
What's that?
Internal hyperactivity.
Right, because we all have this image of a kid literally bouncing off the walls. But for an adult, that energy goes inward.
It goes inward. So you could be sitting perfectly still in a meeting, but inside, your mind is it's racing. You have thoughts you can't turn off.
So it's like an internal restlessness.
An intense urge to fidget, to pace, even if you're suppressing it. And it often comes out as excessive talking. The thoughts are just spilling out.
And this is what keeps people up at night, right?
It's the insomnia. You can't quiet your mind.
Yeah.
That chronic exhaustion just makes every other symptom 100 times worse.
It sounds totally draining and completely invisible to anyone on the outside.
It is.
So if that's the internal state, what about the external day-to-day challenges? Let's talk about routines.
Routines are absolutely critical for adults with ADHD. They provide the external structure that the brain can't create internally.
So when a routine gets disrupted,
it causes a disproportionate amount of stress and anxiety. Right. And even just transitioning between tasks like from work mode to home mode can feel like climbing a mountain.
It's why strategies like breaking tasks into tiny steps are so important. It's about externalizing the structure.
Absolutely. And tied directly to routines is the idea of time blindness.
Time blindness. This is a huge one.
It's a profound difficulty with perceiving time. It's not linear, it's elastic. You might think a task will take 10 minutes when it will really take an hour.
Which leads to chronic lateness, missed deadlines, constantly feeling rushed.
And people misinterpret it as being rude or disrespectful, but you genuinely perceive the passage of time differently. The future feels miles away, and the present is all that exists.
You can see how that would put a massive strain on relationships, the forgetfulness, the interrupting, the time blindness.
It can be incredibly hard on partners and friends who don't understand the neurology behind it.
But the sources are also really clear that we have to balance this. We have to talk about the strengths, too.
That's vital, because people with ADHD also have these incredible strengths. We're talking about huge creativity, the ability to hyper-focus on something they're passionate about.
Spontaneity, a unique way of looking at the world.
Exactly. When a partner understands both sides, they can help channel those strengths, and the whole relationship becomes richer.
Which really just underlines the need for a strong support system.
It's non-negotiable. Friends and family aren't just there for emotional support. They can provide practical help.
Like being an accountability partner for deadlines.
Or just offering non-judgmental reminders. It's about being a safe person who helps rebuild a self-esteem that's often been battered for years.
And that personal network works alongside professional help therapists, ADHD coaches, support groups.
It's that whole ecosystem of support that creates the framework for managing the condition.
So to recap the communication strategy here, start with that clear neurological definition.
Then make it real with personal, relatable examples.
And be ready to draw that line between a common struggle and a clinical disorder with that critical question about life impact.
If you can do that, you move beyond just one conversation.
How so?
Talking about it openly helps normalize it. It makes it so much easier for other people who are maybe wondering why their own life is so hard to think about getting a diagnosis.
Your vulnerability creates a path for someone else.
It really does.
And that leads us to our final thought for you, the listener. We've talked about how managing transitions between tasks is a major struggle and how it's made worse by time blindness, that inability to really feel time passing accurately. So consider this. If organizations truly understood that concept, how might it fundamentally change the way they structure work? If time is elastic for a big part of your workforce, does our reliance on rigid, back-to-back deadlines even make sense anymore?
Or does the entire structure of the workday need a redesign? Not just for one person, but for the whole team.
A lot to chew on there. Thanks for diving deep with us.
My pleasure.
We'll see you next time.